Okay, so let's dive in. It's kind of hard to miss lately. And you hear it, right, in conversations, maybe see it online, this whole buzz about Americans leaving the U.S.
hmm
And it really makes you wonder what's actually going on that in, well, 2025, so many people seem to be heading for the exits.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just, a feeling. The numbers are actually painting a pretty clear picture here.
Okay.
According to this Global Migration Insights report, it looks like over 500,000 U.S. citizens relocated abroad just in the first 6 months of 2025.
Wow, 500,000 in just half a year. That's a powerful statistic.
It really is.
But I think what really makes it stand out is the jump, like a full 40% increase compared to the years right before the pandemic.
Exactly. That's the key part.
So this isn't just some minor fluctuation. It feels like it suggests a pretty significant shift in how people are making decisions.
Absolutely. I
Wow.
mean, it indicates that something pretty fundamental is changing in how a lot of Americans are viewing their prospects, their, quality of life.
And it's not just one type of person making the move, right?
No, not at all. We're seeing a real mix. Young professionals just starting their careers, families, with kids,
Right.
and also a really large segment of the workforce that's now, well, untethered because of remote work.
Okay, let's dig into this then. If you're listening and maybe you felt your wallet a little lighter lately,
Mhm.
noticed your rent seems to climb every single year, or just that the cost of like your weekly groceries keeps creeping up. Well, this probably hits home.
Yeah,
Could a really big part of this be what some people are calling an affordability crisis right here in the US?
I think that certainly appears to be maybe the central factor driving this trend. We're
Yeah.
seeing this sort of convergence of economic pressures.
Like what specifically?
Well, for instance, the housing market.
Mm,
In many parts of the U.S., it's seen just dramatic price increases,
tell me about it.
right? And meanwhile, wages for many just haven't kept pace with inflation overall. And the everyday stuff, food, energy, healthcare, that's also costing significantly more. It's just creating a situation where, honestly, making ends meet has become a major challenge for a growing number of people.
It's like that basic equation,
Yeah.
income versus expenses. It feels like it's tilted dramatically for a lot of folks.
It really has.
And then you look at countries like, say, Mexico or Spain or Thailand, the contrast can be pretty stark, can't it?
No, absolutely.
Suddenly your budget could stretch significantly further, maybe without even a huge drop in lifestyle. You can almost picture it.
Exactly. Those locations often offer a notably lower cost of living, particularly when it comes to housing and, just day-to-day expenses,
Right.
while still providing, for many, a pretty good quality of life. This difference, well, it makes the idea of relocating incredibly appealing for those feeling that financial pinch in the U.S.
Yeah.
We consulted with an economist, Dr. Mark R., and he pointed out that the core parts of the traditional American dream,
Hmm.
owning a home, raising a family on a middle-class income,
The classic stuff.
yeah, that stuff is now, on average, about 30% more expensive than it was just 5 years ago, back in 2020.
Wow. 30% more expensive for the American dream.
No,
That really puts it into perspective.
it does.
So, like Dr. Mark R suggests, for a lot of millennials and Gen Z, this isn't just about like wanting an adventure. It's a fundamental rethinking of where they can actually achieve their financial goals.
hmm He even called it a financial survival tactic.
Survival tactic. That's a really powerful way to look at it.
It is. And, while these economic factors are clearly significant, the motivations definitely go beyond just dollars and cents.
Right.
Many people thinking about this move are also citing reasons that aren't directly tied to their bank accounts.
Which I guess if you've been paying attention to the news and just the general vibe in the US the last few years,
Yeah,
it might bring to mind the intense political climate we've kind of been swimming in.
precisely. That's coming up a lot. We're hearing from many about a sense of what they call political fatigue.
Fatigue. Yeah, I get that.
The intense focus, and let's face it, often divisive nature of the 2024 elections, the ongoing deep political polarization on all sorts of issues.
It feels constant.
It does. And what some see as rapid, sometimes jarring shifts in policy. It's all contributed to this desire to just step away from that constant high tension, to seek a different social, maybe political environment.
Like trying to escape the noise?
Kind of. Imagine feeling like you're just constantly surrounded by arguments.
Yeah.
Some people are definitely looking for a place where the volume is just turned down a bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A desire for like a breather from the constant political back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how this feeling seems to coincide with another huge development,
Mm.
the widespread adoption of remote work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece of the puzzle. The big shift towards remote work by so many companies has really acted as a major catalyst for this whole immigration trend.
How so?
Well, think about it. If your job lets you do your work effectively from anywhere with decent internet, suddenly the range of potential places you could live just explodes. It expands exponentially.
Yeah.
For many, this newfound flexibility has just opened up the possibility of living internationally in a way that simply wasn't an option before.
It's like the map of where you could live has been totally redrawn for a huge chunk of the workforce.
Exactly. Redrawn. That's a good way to put it.
And it seems like it's not just individuals realizing this opportunity. Some countries are actively trying to attract these mobile workers, aren't they?
Yes, definitely. A growing number of countries are now offering what they usually call digital nomad visas.
Ah, I've heard about those.
Yeah, there's specific visa programs designed pretty much explicitly to attract skilled remote workers and, their spending power to their economies. They see the potential economic benefits.
Smart move for them, I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay, with all these people making this move, where are they actually going? We've mentioned a few countries, but are there clear front runners, popular spots?
Well, Portugal, Costa Rica, and Mexico seem to consistently pop up as popular destinations.
Okay.
And this lines up really well with the key factors we've been talking about. More affordable cost of living combined with a perceived high quality of life, often emphasizing things like outdoor activities, maybe a more relaxed pace.
And it's interesting, too, isn't it, that it's not just the traditional big expat cities getting all the attention. I feel like I've heard talk about a rise in popularity for, like, secondary cities.
That's a really sharp observation.
Yeah.
While major global cities still draw plenty of people, we are seeing a notable increase in interest for places like, say, Medellin in Colombia instead of just Miami.
Right. Or Lisbon over LA.
Exactly. Lisbon in Portugal, rather than only focusing on Los Angeles. It suggests maybe a shift in priorities, perhaps moving away from the intensity and, frankly, the high costs you often find in major urban centers towards places offering a different kind of lifestyle altogether.
It's almost like people aren't just looking for like a cheaper version of their old life, but maybe a fundamentally different kind of experience. I think relocation expert Jess T had an interesting take on this.
Yes, Jess T made a great point. They observed that many individuals aren't simply trying to, replicate their U.S. lives somewhere else.
Not just moving their stuff.
No. Instead, they're actively seeking to, and this was their phrase, downgrade stress and upgrade freedom.
Downgrade stress, upgrade freedom. I like that.
Yeah. And this often involves pretty significant lifestyle adjustments, like prioritizing time over maybe material possessions or really embracing a slower pace of life.
Which brings to mind that example just to use, maybe choosing the relaxed experience of getting coffee at a local street market instead of the fast-paced daily Starbucks run.
Exactly, that kind of shift. It sounds like a really conscious reevaluation of what truly adds value to their day-to-day lives.
A whole reevaluation.
Precisely. It's a reexamination of what actually constitutes a fulfilling life. And, well, for a growing number of people, that now seems to involve a different geographical setting.
Okay. But we should probably acknowledge that this trend, this emigration, it isn't universally seen as a bad thing for the U.S. itself, right?
That's a very important point.
Yeah.
Yes. There are different ways to frame this. It's not necessarily all bad news for the United States.
How so? What's the other side?
Well, some argue that this outward migration could maybe act as a kind of natural reset, or maybe a pressure valve for the U.S.
A pressure valve. How?
It might force a more critical look at the underlying economic and social factors that are, pushing people to seek opportunities elsewhere. It could potentially spur action to actually address some of these issues.
Ah, okay. So almost like a feedback loop.
Yeah.
The country gets a signal to look inwards and maybe fix some challenges. That's a thought-provoking perspective.
It is.
But then on the flip side, there's also the worry about the U.S. maybe losing valuable talent and skills, isn't there?
Absolutely. That's the counterargument, and it raises very valid concerns about a potential talent bleed.
Talent bleed.
Where the departure of skilled, educated, entrepreneurial individuals could actually have negative consequences down the line for American innovation, economic competitiveness, and just the overall future prosperity of the nation.
Right. So we have these two kind of opposing views on the bigger impact. But ultimately, when you see this many people deciding to leave, it brings us back to that core question we started with, doesn't it?
Hmm.
When people vote with their feet on this kind of scale, you really have to ask, what are they truly trying to leave behind?
Yeah.
And maybe even more importantly, what fundamental changes might be needed here to make them want to stay?
Those are, I think, the critical questions that really warrant some serious consideration, some serious discussion as we watch this trend continue to evolve.
Definitely. So what do you think, listening right now, is this big emigration trend a kind of wake-up call for the U.S. to maybe address some core issues? Or is it just, a sign of a more globally mobile future, the new normal? We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Send us a direct message on X. Our handle is @podcasthandle. We might even share some of your insights in our next Deep Dive.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks so much for joining us for this exploration today. If you found this discussion valuable, maybe consider leaving us a review. It really helps.
It does.
And who knows, might be worth taking a quick peek at the price of a one-way ticket to Lisbon. Just putting it out there.
Indeed. Just checking.